Welcome back. I want to go over some forensics of the clutch job I went over and give you a tip and a trick. I said I was going to buy a second drop gear bearing, the lower drop gear bearing, just to have it in stock. It's such a great idea, and I want to explain to you why I did that and why I think it is. Number one, it's under $100. It's the same dimensions as the old one. And here's the one I took out, and notice the inner race is attached to the cage and the cylindrical rollers. Now, the new one's still in the package, but I'm popping it up with a little socket, and you can see that the part here is not the outer race, but it's the inner race, which is free to move out, and that is the difference. Now, how this makes an importance is the 36mm hole on the back of the bell housing. This new bearing saves one step in the removal process where you don't need to get a snap ring out, you don't need to tap a bearing on, just rotate the shaft and the whole bell housing comes right out smoothly. So I'm sold on this, and I wanted to tell you, if there's ever a chance you need to replace the drop gear, Ferrari Parts Exchange has this bearing well under $100 on the drop gear cog, the lower drop gear cog on the input shaft to it. And it really saves you a lot of effort in a clutch job and removing the bell housing. So there's your tip for the week. Ferrari Parts Exchange. Now that our bell housing is ready to mount, I wanted to take a moment just before that and outline something I think is a real feature of our new bearing. Here's our old bearing set. Remember, we had to release the bell housing and tap this center from its side because it is so large that it does not pass through the 36mm hole in the back of the case there. As you see, the rollers and their cage are attached to the inner race of the old bearing. Notice when I tapped it in, I tapped in the outer race that is now attached with its cage and rollers, and it is the inner race which is free, right? Right now, I can slip. It's going to slip through. It goes through the other way. What this means is it will slip through when you pull the bell housing off. Bottom line, you no longer have to mess with removing this clip, this race, this bearing or cage system. The whole bell housing will slip right out. Wow, I like this new bearing so much more. I've already put another one in my shopping cart, and I think good things like this, I think it's an improvement, and I'm afraid that good things like this tend to go away. So I am thinking about buying an extra one, but this is a really great feature of the new bearing that's gone in. One point I did not mention on the new bearing, you absolutely positively must have the spacer on the input shaft to the transaxle before you bring the housing up. You will not be able to get it through this bearing. Make it easy. Install the spacer on the transaxle input shaft now. Before mating the bell housing is to insert the spacer. With our new lower drop gear bearing, it will not clear through the inner race area. So we need to make sure we install this now before we even start, and that way the clutch housing. Plus, in the future, when we go to take the bell housing off again, we won't have to fiddle around with the lower drop gear bearing. It'll slip right out through the inner race. It's a different configuration, but still the same dimensions as the original.